Today, we're talking about giving and receiving feedback. And this is actually something that came up in our own team recently, where there were some points where we thought we should give more constructive feedback to each other so we could all improve together. And one of my team members suggested we read the same book at the same time so we could discuss it together. So I started thinking, what are some of the best books around feedback? What would I recommend for someone who wants to get better at either giving or receiving feedback? And I wanted to share them with you. Before we jump into the list, a couple ground rules. No one! If you enjoy these books, please go and buy them. They're really worth supporting the authors, and you'll probably get even more out of them by actually buying them. We also have a show notes page for this episode that has links to all the books that we re-mentioning. And then I have some questions at the end of the episode that I think will help you reflect on how you give and receive feedback in your own life. So let's dive in. First up is Radical Candor by Kim Scott. This is actually the first book that I thought of when thinking about this episode. I have a copy of this book here on my bookshelf, and it's well worn. It's one that I've read multiple times, and every time I do, I find something new. A couple of things that I really like about this book. First, it talks about how to give feedback and when to give feedback. So say you have a direct report and they did something wrong, or you see them doing something that is not great. The book talks about how long you should wait before you give feedback, which I found really helpful because I tend to want to give feedback right away. But sometimes it is better to maybe wait a day or two or even longer until you can give the most effective feedback. Then another thing that I really like about this book is the model that she gives for giving feedback. She calls it the Radical Candor Feedback Model. And basically, you want to start off with a positive. Then you want to explain the behavior. Then you want to tell them why it matters. Then you want to give suggestions for improvement. And then finally, you want to end with positivity. So let me give an example. Hey, I really appreciate how much effort you put into this presentation. That was really awesome. I also noticed that you spent a lot of time reading from your slides. It's hard to make eye contact with the audience when you're doing that. When you don't make eye contact, the audience has a harder time connecting with you. One way to fix this is to try memorizing the key points of your talk and then practice saying them without looking at your slides. I know you can do it. You're a great presenter. Thanks so much for your help on this project. So that's the Radical Candor Feedback Model. Start positive. Explain the behavior. Tell them why it matters. Give suggestions for improvement. And then end positive. The second book is Crucial Conversations: Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High. I haven't read this one cover to cover myself, but I've read parts of it, and a few people that I trust have recommended it, including Patty McCord, who was the head of people at Netflix for many years. She says this is one of her favorite books. The subtitle says, Tools for Talking When the Stakes Are High. And that's exactly what it's about. Anytime you give feedback, the stakes are high. You might be worried that you're going to hurt someone's feelings or they might get angry with you. And this book gives you a framework for having those conversations. So it's definitely one I'd recommend. The third book is called The Coaching Habit: Say Less and Ask More to Help Others Learn and Grow by Michael Bungay-Stanier, or MBS. Now, I love this book. I've read it twice. I have a link to it below. And I'm actually working through applying these ideas in my own life, both in my personal life and in my professional life. He gives a simple model for asking questions that helps you coach others to their own insights. So, rather than telling someone what to do or giving them advice, you ask them questions that help them think differently about the situation so they can figure out the answer themselves. And then that leads to more ownership and accountability. There's a couple of things that I really like about this book. First, he gives 6 questions that follow a simple acronym, which makes it easy to remember. The 6 questions are: first, what's on your mind? Second, and what's the potential for that? Third, what's in the way? Fourth, what would it be like if that was different? Fifth, what would that look like? And then sixth, what's the next step? Those are the 6 questions that again follow the acronym, which is pretty easy to remember. The other thing that I really like about this book is that he talks about how sometimes people just want to vent, and giving advice is helpful. In those cases, he recommends something called reflective listening, where you simply acknowledge what they said and reflect it back to them. So rather than trying to solve their problem, you show them that you hear them and that you understand them. A couple of examples of reflective listening are phrases like, it sounds like, it looks like, I'm hearing, I'm picking up, Or it seems like, so back to my earlier example about someone reading from their slides during a presentation. Rather than jumping straight into giving them advice about how to fix it, I might start with reflective listening. I might say, "Wow, I'm hearing frustration in your voice. It sounds like you had a tough time with the slides." You want to start with something that shows that you've heard them and that you care about what they going through before you jump into giving them advice or telling them how to do things. The fourth book is How to Be an Adult in a World That Does Want You to Be. And this is an interesting one because while it's not specifically about giving or receiving feedback, it's about having difficult conversations. And this is something that comes up whenever you give feedback. It is often uncomfortable, and you may need to use some of the techniques from this book to be able to have those conversations effectively. I read this book in one sitting, and I found it really insightful. The author gives you permission to stop people-pleasing, stop making excuses, stop blaming others. Take responsibility for yourself, set boundaries, and become resilient. It is a quick and easy read. And I think it is helpful, whether you re-giving feedback or receiving feedback. Finally, the last book that I want to recommend today is Never Split the Difference. Negotiating as if your life depended on it, which it kind of does. Giving and receiving feedback is a negotiation. The other person doesn't always agree that there is a problem or that it needs to be fixed. So you need to be able to negotiate around feedback, and this book teaches you a whole bunch of skills that you can use in any type of negotiation. I've recommended this book before in ILL, probably recommend it again in the future because I think it is so good. So those are 5 of my favorite books around giving and receiving feedback. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these have you read? Let me know down in the comments below. I also have a few questions that I think will help you reflect on how you give and receive feedback in your own life. Question number 1. What's one thing that you wish you had known about giving feedback sooner? Question 2. What's one thing that you wish you had known about receiving feedback sooner? And question 3. What's one thing that you do that you think makes you a better giver of feedback? Or if you'd rather not share publicly, you can leave your answers in a comment on the website. I hope you found this helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.